Kivi na Luanda. Didier Drogba.
The smoke from the blast descends across the departure hall in a deadly cloud. These pictures were taken seconds after the suicide bombers struck. People cower on the floor. Everywhere there's uncertainty and fear as the injured stumble in the gloom, trying to reach safety. Around them, bodies and debris from the blast. The fear is that more explosions are about to come. Luggage lies abandoned as many people run for their lives.
It felt close. It wasn't just a question of hearing the sound. We felt the sound. We felt the shock waves of those explosions. So we were pretty close. Another indication is that we saw the sort of dust come from the ceiling and the shelves in the shop we were in. The bottles juddered.
We'd just passed through security when we heard the explosions. We were waiting to board a flight to Tel Aviv. Around us, terrified passengers flee, but they're...
In the summer of 2015, Europe experienced the highest influx of refugees since the Second World War. Why? The main reason is that Syria has become the world's top source of refugees. Syria is located in the Middle East, an ancient, fertile land settled for at least 10,000 years. Since the 1960s, it's been led by the al-Assad family, who have ruled it as quasi-dictators until the Arab Spring happened in 2011, a revolutionary wave of protests and conflicts in the Arab world that toppled many authoritarian regimes. But the Assads refused to step down and started a brutal civil war. Different ethnicities and religious groups fought each other in changing coalitions. ISIS, a militaristic jihadist group, used the opportunity and entered the chaos with the goal to build a totalitarian Islamic caliphate. Very quickly, it became one of the most violent and successful extremist organizations on earth. All sides committed horrible war crimes using chemical weapons, mass executions, torture on a large scale, and repeated deadly attacks on civilians. The Syrian population was trapped between the regime, rebel groups, and the religious extremists. A third of the Syrians. Between 2007 and 2014, the European Union had invested about €2 billion into fences, high-tech security technology and border patrols, but not a lot in preparation for an influx of refugees. So it was badly prepared for the storm of asylum seekers. In the EU, a refugee has to stay in the state they arrived in first, which put enormous pressure on the border states that were already in trouble. Greece, in the midst of an economic crisis on the scale of the Great Depression, was not able to take care of so many people at once, leading to terrible scenes of desperate, hungry people on islands usually reserved for tourists. The world needed to come together and act as a united front, but instead it has become more divided. Many states downright refused to take in any refugees, leaving the border states alone in their struggle. Terrorist groups like Al-Qaeda trickled into Iraq, and local forces, often former Sunni military, began fighting the US troops and the newly formed Iraqi state, peaking in a bloody civil war in 2006. Since then, people in Iraq have basically been segregated by religion. And one of those terror organizations supported by Saudi Arabia was the Islamic State in Iraq, or ISI for short. In 2010, the Arab Spring happened and changed the whole situation in the Middle East. In Syria, dictator Bashar al-Assad didn't think much of resigning and started a gruesome civil war against his own people. The longer the war went on, the more foreign groups joined the fight, most of them for religious reasons and with the goal of building an Islamic State in the region. And one of them was the infamous ISI, which now became the Islamic State in Iraq and Syria, or ISIS. They had fought in Iraq for years and had thousands of well-trained and fanatic soldiers. They already quasi-controlled parts of northern Iraq and were very determined to build their religious state. And they changed the game in Syria like no one expected. ISIS was so unbelievably violent and radical that soon it was at war with almost every other faction of the Syrian rebel armies. They attacked and killed members of other Muslim terrorist groups. In the territories they controlled, they built an Islamic State with rules so strict that even the hardliners of Al-Qaeda and Saudi Arabia were shocked and withdrew their support. ISIS has been accused of responsibility for multiple massacres against civilians, countless suicide bombings, the hostage-taking of women and children, the execution of their prisoners, and beheadings. all kinds of medieval horrors we would rather not have to illustrate. And this lovely gathering of human beings recently decided it was time to take more territory in Iraq.
Donald J. Trump is calling for a total and complete shutdown of Muslims entering the United States until our country's representatives can figure out what the hell is going on.
Supporters waited in line to hear Donald Trump speak tonight in South Carolina. Word started to spread about his latest idea, banning all Muslims from entering the U.S.
Donald Trump is now saying Muslims should not be allowed to enter this country until the U.S. figures out what's going on. Do you agree with that?
Yes, I do.
Why?
I don't want them here. Who knows what they're going to bring into this country? What, bombs? ISIS? What? They need to go.
He's not the only supporter backing Trump's call for a total and complete shutdown of Muslims entering the U.S. In fact, no one here we spoke with had a problem with the plan.
That's a very prudent idea, and I think that he's done due diligence when he makes that statement. We have to protect our American citizens first, and the vetting process and the whole program lacks integrity.
That's not true. In fact, the vetting process run through multiple agencies is vigorous. Some folks here saying not all Muslims are bad when pressed, but say they don't want to take any chances, even if some are coming to terms with it slowly.
I think that they should go through screening. I mean, extensive screening. I mean, we just let terrorists into this country that did the California shooting.
He's not saying screening. He's just saying no Muslim should be allowed to enter the country right now. You agree? Yes or no? It's that simple.
Yes.
Trump's harsh words for ISIS have also energized his supporters. On Fox recently, Mr. Trump shared
how do you actually get them registered into a database?
It would be just good management. But you have to
part of his plan for how he'd bring down ISIS, including targeting terrorist families.
You have to wipe out their homes where they came from. You have to absolutely wipe them out. It's the only way you're going to stop terrorism.
Are you in favor of bombing terrorist homes?
Absolutely. Absolutely. People will continue to reproduce, and they will raise children in their beliefs.
Somebody just needs to go in there and take control of this. I just think it's going rampant, and I'm worried about America, worried about our safety. They're getting in. They need to be stopped.
At a November rally, Trump had some of his strongest words yet.
we got to go and we got to knock the shit out of these people.
Why do you think that he's the guy to take on ISIS?
He's got the guts to take it on, and he can build a coalition also of other people to take him on as well.
When can we get rid of
We're going to be looking at a lot of different things.
I love the Muslims. I think they're great people.
Putting one in your cabinet or on your ticket, a Muslim American.
Oh, absolutely. No problem with it. I love the Muslims. Great people. Most Muslims are wonderful people. I have many friends. People living in this building. Muslims. They're phenomenal people.
Do you think Muslims are a problem?
Well, I think a certain segment are certainly a problem. I didn't see Swedish people knocking down the World Trade Center.
They're not coming out of Sweden that want to kill us.
I don't notice Swedish people knocking down the World Trade Center.
We have great people in the Muslim population, but something's happening.
We are not exactly loved by many Muslims.
I want surveillance of certain mosques, okay?
You have people where there are problems.
When the World Trade Center came tumbling down, I watched in Jersey City, New Jersey, where thousands and thousands of people were cheering. We have to really be vigilant with respect to the Muslim population.
condemnation from his party elders.
This is not conservatism.
GOP presidential hopeful Donald Trump refusing to back down on his proposal banning Muslims from entering the U.S.
What was proposed yesterday is not what this party stands for, and more importantly, it's not what this country stands for.
The chairman of the Republican National Committee joining the chorus, telling the Washington Examiner, "I don't agree. We need to aggressively take on radical Islamic terrorism, but not at the expense of our American values." One GOP lawmaker issuing a call from the House floor for the billionaire to drop out.
It's time for Donald Trump to withdraw from the race.
Trump, unfazed by comparisons to Hitler, on the front page of the Philadelphia Daily News.
I'm talking about a temporary situation until our country's representatives can figure out what the hell is going on.
The implication of what he said is that if we were enforcing our immigration laws appropriately at this point in time, we might have a better handle on this.